Welcome, everyone. As people are coming in, it'd be great to learn about where you're from and what your interests are in tiny houses. And so maybe you can post those things in the comments. I'll respond until we have kind of a critical mass and we can get going with the presentation. Welcome, everyone. As I said before, I'm curious to know where each of you are from. Where are all of you hailing from? Maybe you can put it in the chat until we get everybody here. Looks like we've got kind of a critical mass now, so I can get going. Let me share my screen real quick. So, as people are kind of trailing in, I'll go ahead and introduce myself and my colleagues, and we'll kind of get going here. My name is Ralph Spencer Steenblik, and at the last Global Tiny House Conference, myself and my colleagues presented about a design and architecture studio that we were participating in at the time, dealing with small living spaces. And we called our studio Part to Whole, Global to Local. And so David Vardy and myself were involved in this studio, and we had 25 students or so working with us on this design process. And so we're now finished with that studio. And so this is kind of a retrospective conversation where we're thinking about all of those things. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me and that I'm not speaking without. Okay, good. Oh, look at this. We've got a lot of great people who've been kind of giving us a heads up, from a shout out from where they are. We've got Oregon, we've got Maine, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, near Toronto, I believe. That's Deanna. And an Oregon, northwestern Montana. This is wonderful. Another Oregon, New Jersey, Fresno, California, Dallas, Texas. This is really amazing. Nice to meet all of you. Thank you very much. Oh, we've got someone from Nicaragua. How beautiful. We've got Mark Tholen from XJTLU, which is one of our kind of sister institutions here in China. XJTLU is based in Suzhou. Nice to have you here, Mark. Los Angeles, Southern Florida, Ohio, New Delhi, India. This is really amazing, really great. It's people from all over the world. Very, very cool. Let's see here. Woodstock, Georgia. Wonderful. Okay, so I'll keep going. I just wanted to check in because I didn't want to get too far into things without making sure that we were good. So anyway, we had a lot of fun with our studio last semester, and we were able to present to the Global Tiny House community about midway through our process. At that point, the Global Tiny House Conference was our first opportunity to take our work public and global. And after that, we had several other opportunities, which I'll get into in a minute. But I just wanted to get in and reintroduce our topic and the things we were dealing with last semester in a similar way that I did the first time. I'll go much quicker this time so that I can get into the new content and where we ended up with our studio. But just to kind of start and give a background, we're operating in Wenzhou, China. And we have a campus that we that is our sister university in New Jersey called Kane University. And so Wenzhou Kane has been around for about 10 years. And one of the wonderful things about Wenzhou Kane is it kind of lies on the outskirts of Wenzhou. Wenzhou is kind of a second tier city in Zhejiang province, and Zhejiang province is on the east coast of China, just south of Shanghai by about 4 hours. So what you see here is two photographs, one of our campus and the other one of the village that's right next door to our campus. And they look like they're completely different places. One looks like kind of a rural village in China, and the other one looks like modernism or a Western kind of development. But in fact, they are indeed right next door to each other. Hard to believe, but it's true. And I'd just like to give a shout out to our brand new architecture building that was featured in Metropolis. This is a screenshot from that Metropolis magazine article featuring our new architecture building. So just to kind of give you a sense of where we were coming from. But here's the thing: is that in the West, there's this idea of the homestead and of kind of claiming your own piece of land, and that you have this singular suburban home. But in the East, we have this idea of the courtyard and the multiplicity of a complex community, more developed in these kinds of ways. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the place where we are, kind of straddling East and West, to be taken advantage of in a way that can benefit a lot of different spheres and thoughts. In addition to that, when you think about the equivalent of the tiny home movement in the West, you might also think about the kind of sea of high-rise developments that happen in China and in other places in the East, where the density is quite thick. And this might be the closest equivalent to the tiny house movement in the West. Actually, this is here in Hong Kong, of course, not far from here. I grew up in small town USA. Suburbia was kind of my backyard, and with that, I was completely aware and enthralled with the problems and also the beauties of suburbia. And so I was excited when we had the opportunity to participate in a tiny house competition that was hosted by AIA Salt Lake City. And so AIA Salt Lake City was thinking about the tiny house and the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit. So here we see the Deseret News in Salt Lake City featuring this article where the mayor is interested in creating a tiny house community in Salt Lake City. And so we wanted to kind of straddle that line of East and West and kind of try and figure out how we best utilize our position to benefit the world in a positive way. Here you see on the top the roundhouses from Fujian province, just south of us, and then to the east you have the capsule hotels in Japan. So there's a lot of kind of tiny living examples in and around us in Asia that you may not think about otherwise in the context of the West, but it's rich. It's really rich, and we're fortunate to be in this place, thinking about it from another perspective. Now, one of the exercises that we did in our design process of developing our tiny houses as a class, as a studio, is that we decided that we wanted to do one-to-one scale drawings. So here you can see this is our review and our critique of those one-to-one scale drawings, where we actually went outside and started to develop these one-to-one drawings and test them. We wanted to see what it was like to feel the space at a one-to-one scale prior to actually constructing it. And we felt like that was quite an influential part of the studio, where we were able to really get a sense and redesign things at that scale and at that point. Now, I wanted to give another shout out to all of the studio, all of the students in the studio, and this is all their work that I'm reporting on, and so I can't take any credit for it. It's all their work, and we're really proud of all the things they accomplished during the studio, and we just want to I just want to congratulate them again on their efforts and on the work they produced. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the things that they came up with, and I think that they were quite intriguing ideas. So here we can see some of those ideas as they had been developed at that midterm point, where the students had at this point developed a tiny house, and this tiny house was prepared to enter this competition in Salt Lake City, and each of them had selected a specific site to kind of use as a platform to develop their ideas, and all of them had been thinking about different ways of developing tiny living strategies, and we were happy to see these developments take shape. Here we're seeing an example where they're using large-scale infrastructure plumbing, these concrete precast units as a pretext upon which to develop a home. Other interesting opportunities using the courtyard as a part of the tiny house, which is maybe outside of the realm of what most people think about when they think tiny house, but interesting nonetheless. Other ideas of going vertical and extrapolating this small space into a vertical kind of experience. Others thinking about compartmentalization and storage below the ground and above the ground, and ways to kind of make that interesting and minimalistic. Thinking about incorporating greenery as a part of the infrastructure of the house, and others thinking about enclosure that's in a non-traditional form, such as an inflatable. Thinking about the development and the intersection between renewable energy and tiny living. And so here we see an example of a large-scale wind turbine and housing that's developed as a part of that. And then on the other side here we see kind of the fetishization of the solar panel, and that becoming kind of paramount in the design process there, with this pitched roof overhanging this quite small living space. Others thinking about the modularity of construction and the way that we make a tiny house that's a kit of parts, and that's one of the things that was thought about in the studio. And others thinking about using the house as a cleaning filtration system, and how that might work. Now, in the studio, we had a set of principles that we followed, and so these were quite fundamental to us. And so the idea of going from small to big, designing the unit before we designed the community, from inside to outside, thinking about the spaces internally, and then thinking about how those spaces affect the surroundings, right? The idea of the material first, and then the aggregation of that material and how that plays itself out. This is work by Wang Shu, who's a Chinese architect, Pritzker Prize-winning architect, where he's using rubble from the village that had been in this location previously as a part of the facade elements. And then, of course, from the room to the form. And so this is a tower in Japan, a Metabolist tower in Japan, which is actually unfortunately set for demolition. It's a modernist, marvelous, wonderful piece. It's too bad it's being demolished. Anyway, and then also from local to global, thinking about how we address local problems, and then how addressing those local problems might be extrapolated and be useful on the global stage. Many of you, maybe you've seen this movie called Downsizing, but the idea of decreasing our carbon footprint by living small is a great is just a great principle. And so I think that anytime we can live in kind of a more condensed situation, the better it is for our global footprint. So interesting idea. And then, of course, referencing this huge kind of phenomenon in China of housing and high-rise complexity in China is, of course, something that just kind of weighs heavy on us whenever we're designing in this context. So we had kind of a really interesting set of projects, and the interesting thing was that at the midterm point, we encouraged the students to take the individual unit that they'd created, and then to form a group of two. So they now had 2 units, and then to aggregate those units to create a community. And when I was participating last time in the Global Tiny House Conference, I was struck by how much of the conversation was about community and not just about the tiny house individually, but also about how it fits into a broader context. And so I feel like that this fits very well within the realm of the conversation that's happening at the Global Tiny House Conference and within this community. So I'm very excited about that. So we let's see, go on. One of the wonderful things about the studio was that we actually had one of our students become a finalist in this competition. This was Grace's project, and she submitted her project to the Global Tiny House, or sorry, to the Salt Lake City AIA competition and received prize money for it. So that was really exciting for our group. And her idea was to take the existing detached garage and then build tiny on top of it. And that was kind of her thinking, and it won a prize. So that was really wonderful. And we just wanted to highlight her work and congratulate her again on that huge win for her. She's the only winner outside of the United States, and that was pretty exciting for us to be a part of. Another opportunity we had within the context of the studio is that we were able to go to take our work to Shanghai and exhibit it at a big exhibition called Future Lab that happens there annually. And so the Michael Graves College went, which is the college within which the School of Public Architecture resides, and one of the main featured pieces was our tiny houses that we had 3D printed. And so here we are setting those tiny houses up and getting ready to show them. And we had some wonderful results there. You can see Grace's 3D printed model there, along with some of the others, which were quite nice to see. And here you see that event and what we were able to do with that. So that was fun. And then, of course, we also had that presentation, and we had our students there, and they were involved, and that was really wonderful to have them with us. Unfortunately, the timing isn't right. It's almost 1 a.m. here, so it's a little difficult to have the students participate this time. And unfortunately, David wasn't able to join me either, but we miss his presence, and we're really happy for his contributions to this effort and this work. So here you can see kind of the breadth of those tiny houses as they've been 3D printed and on display there in Shanghai. Really positive experience for us to be able to share the work. I think it's wonderful to see this wind turbine house here in the middle, and you can kind of get a sense for what it might have felt like built. Now, so here I'm going to just play some of the final results here that we had from the studio, and you can get a sense for what these things ended up being like in terms of how they developed them into communities. So this project here was dealing with an existing small semi-rural community in just outside of Suzhou that's known for lobster fishing and other fishing trades. And they were thinking about this datum of the river and using the river as a corridor upon which to develop further housing opportunities, and how to kind of integrate their project within the context of the greater community and how that would work. So I think that they did a really beautiful project that's thinking about this river corridor and how to negotiate between the existing infrastructure and built out um, uh, uh, built environment, and then their new interventions. And the idea for them is that they're trying to create an amenity or build on the existing condition as much as possible. This is Ethan and Vicky. And then of course we have other projects that were quite exciting and ambitious. This one is for Wellington, New Zealand, where supposedly it's one of the worst housing shortages and crises in the world. You can find articles about how the United Nations has declared the housing shortages in New Zealand to be a crime against humanity and these sorts of things. And so we were taking the existing rail yards and developing this complex of tiny house units, and in the form of course, apartments or the like. But you can see this project here that was developing in that way. I believe that the idea for them was that it was actually on the railroad tracks and that it would move around on the railroad tracks. So that was kind of an interesting ambition for them. And here you can see that project where there's a series of these units on the railroad tracks, able to kind of go back and forth in this rail yard. And the project's right next to this big industrial area and the large stadium in the foreground there. You can see it. We had a wonderful time, and the students developed some really amazing projects. Kyle and Lewis developed this scheme, and this is at a site in Amsterdam, just off the coast of Amsterdam, which was an existing waterway on the edge of Amsterdam, and they're thinking about how to use that space. The site was actually a recent competition site for a global competition, and they're taking their tiny house units and aggregating them to create this interesting concrete composition here on the edge of Amsterdam, right at the ocean. Really beautiful ideas and rendering to help us understand what it might be like to be there. This design was incorporating the courtyard as a part of the tiny house unit, and so the actual volume of the overall community is much greater than the volume of the built environment or the interior volumes, because of those inherent courtyards within many of the units. And here you see the plan for that community outside of Amsterdam. We had a lot of very inventive and intriguing projects, and it was quite fun to see how these projects developed from individual units into a whole community. Sometimes the students kept the units intact, and sometimes they took those units and took the intentions of the units and then built them out. Here you can see they're thinking about building in cardboard tubes, and then kind of encasing those cardboard tubes in some sort of a waterproofing material to allow them to aggregate. For us, materiality was very important, and those materials that were informing their original design ideas were carried over to a great extent within their final community designs. So here we can see this is Sugar and Nancy, and they were dealing with this kind of this barrel vault house, and they've taken that barrel vault and the materiality of that barrel vault, and then extrapolated that to create larger community spaces within their community. One of the features of their community was this large art museum that's using that barrel vault geometry, but extrapolating the geometry and utilizing another material to fulfill their interests with that. So I think that you can see, and here you can see that art museum. I think that what you can see here is that even though there's kind of a homogeneity to the design of the community, at the same time we have a richness that's able to be developed through the integration of landscape and the ways in which the students are able to address the site conditions and site constraints in a way that's so compelling and successful. So we're proud of what they were able to accomplish, and we feel like that the work stands on its own. Here you can see those kind of barrel vaults in the landscape. Here's one of the more ambitious projects, thinking about the wind turbine and how to integrate housing as a part of the renewable energy process, and moving the development of the community from real estate on the land to being more land driven. So thinking about how the wind turbine might integrate with community in the ocean. Felt like this project helped us move in an ambitious direction, which I think that is commendable for these students to be able to be thinking about how we can develop and deal with housing problem in a sustainable and in an ambitious way. So I think the students had a lot of fun with this project. It may have issues with complexity and with funding, with cost, but at the same time, if we don't dream big, we're never going to have the opportunity to actually instantiate those larger dreams. Here we can see, I feel like this is kind of the quintessential photograph of the entire studio. Quite amazing. So here we see Grace and Anita and their work. They're thinking about the ADU and this kind of more vertical tiny house and how those two integrate. So you can see Grace's garage house there in the landscape, and then Anita's house kind of aggregating to create this more urban feel. So Grace's houses are 2 stories, and the first story is underground, and the second story is here above ground. And then below ground you have the parking lot layers, your parking garages and other support spaces. And then what's above ground is more park-like, of course. And so it's kind of an interesting way to approach that. And their site was also in Amsterdam. So I think I'm just about out of time. I just wanted to kind of show everyone the work that the students have been doing and where we kind of left things at the end of the semester, where we ended up thinking about all of these different things. It's quite interesting. This one is at that same site in Suzhou, outside of Suzhou, thinking about the idea of moving from the more urban to the more rural or more garden-oriented city. And so thinking about how to create a gradient in the landscape from urban to more garden-oriented. And with that, I just want to thank you for your time, and I know that people are probably moving on to the next session, but if anyone would like to stick around and ask questions, you're welcome to do so. Also, we have our website that we developed last semester. The students worked hard and coded their own websites on GitHub, and so we have our GitHub website there that you can scan the QR code or follow that link to go find all of the work from these students. Very happy with everything that they were able to accomplish last semester, and really grateful to the global tiny house community and the sponsors of this session for making it possible for us to present today. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. So one question here is it mostly just design, or have we taken steps to manufacturing? We have done some full-scale work. I wouldn't say it's complex enough to be a tiny house at this point, but I think it would be a great opportunity for us later on to enter the solar decathlon or some other event like that, which would be wonderful. And we have, we're doing all we can to be full scale. So that's something we're interested in. Oliver, thank you for the question. Carla asks, what is the programming of the study that the students are pursuing, and are they studying at the Wenzhou Kane University? Yes, these are all students from Wenzhou Kane University, Carla, and they are students from all over China. So they're students from all over China, and they've been really working hard to develop these programs. And the program of study is an architecture bachelor's degree. We also have a master's degree here at Wenzhou Kane University. It's a NAB accredited degree, so students can work towards United States licensure after they finish their degree here. And more specifically, that course was focused on first designing a tiny house to enter into this AIA competition, and then afterwards to develop it into a community. So that was the idea of the studio. Oh, someone asked about the wooden model and where it's located. Don't know which one he was talking about. Oh, the website. I'll add the website link here so that people have that. There you go. There's the website for anyone who wants it. Thank you so much for your time and for being a part of this today. Really appreciate it, and great questions from everyone. Again, wanted to thank all the students and David Vardy for all their hard work in the efforts of this project. It's been really fun to participate in. So thank you. I'm going to end the live stream now.